Hi, folks. Dr. Jim Gishwin here, PhD. Let's talk about China today and Joe Biden and the Hunter Biden case. You may have heard that he pleaded to a diversion thing on a felony count of lying on his tax, on his gun application fee. This very rarely happens, okay? This is not a usual thing, okay? A diversion on a felony like that. No, if it was you and me, we'd be in the lockup. Number two, he got off on his IRS charge, his tax charge for a $10 million bribe, which a foreign whistleblower brought to light not too long ago. But also, you got to remember, hey, does anyone have a memory of when Joe Biden got on television and said he was withholding $6 million or $6 billion or something like that to Ukraine unless they fired the prosecutor investigating Burisma Oil, where his son worked, supposedly, even though he wasn't probably occupying a desk and a chair there. Okay, he was on the board. I mean, he actually get on. Hey, the quid pro quo was right there with Joe Biden, for God's sake. Why did we even need an investigation? He sat there and spouted it off, bragged about it in national news. He said, well, I told them, by God, if they didn't fire that prosecutor, I was leaving here in 6 hours and they weren't going to get their foreign aid. He used our money for extortion. And he comes back and says, and by God, they fired him. Big joke. And of course, we know, I mean, all the Hunter Biden stuff and all the emails, and we have all the financial records for all the shell companies. We know about all the millions going to the Biden crime family. Okay? And yet, we have to have investigations. Why do we have to have investigations? It's all known. It's all out there. And just because you're not watching CNN and MSNBC and not getting the information doesn't mean it isn't a fact. I mean, a fact is a fact. You can sit there and lie by omission like NBC and CBS and CNN and ABC and just not cover it. Or sit there and say, oh, well, Biden's proud of his kid. Of course he's proud of him. He used him as a middleman to sit there and rake in millions from a lot of different countries. Turkestan, Russia, Ukraine, China especially. Okay? And even the CEO of his defunct company sit there and said, yeah, the big guy that they had to send 10% to was Joe Biden. Joe Biden's been doing this forever. So it's not something new. Now, they're having hearings in the United States Congress to let the 17% of the Democrats that are moderate or said they wouldn't have voted for Joe Biden if they had known about the Hunter Biden laptop thing, which was withheld deliberately by the FBI and told to Facebook and to Twitter and to other people not to sit there and to discount it as Russian propaganda, which it wasn't. They had the receipt. They have tons of stuff, emails and stuff of Hunter Biden just literally incriminating him and his father left and right. And Joe Biden doesn't give a crap about Hunter Biden. He'll throw him under the bus in a heartbeat. Okay? Now this, if you or I had been charged with tax evasion for a $10 million bribe, okay, where would you and I be? You know it. Not Hunter. Oh, no. This is going to be something, a diversionary thing. No jail time, probation. Oh, yeah. Huh? You and I would get that, I'm sure. If I had $10 million, boy, I'll tell you, I wouldn't be living the way I am. Well, no, I probably would be. My needs aren't much. Anyway, I'm one of those lottery kind of guy winners that I wouldn't quit a job or I wouldn't quit doing what I'm doing if I had all that money. Anyway, and we got the Chinese. Now, if people don't think that we don't have someone that's a proponent of China in the White House, think again. For 10, 15 years, 20 years, he's been saying it's good for China to get ahead. It's good for China. It's good for the United States if China expands. Oh, yeah. And during our recent oil price crisis, when he released all that oil from the Federal Reserve, guess who he sold it to? Oh, yeah. A Chinese oil company with his son on the board of directors. You got it. And we are selling our strategic oil to our enemy. And that's being done by the President of the United States. We've had 2 spy balloons. Okay? We have Bill Gates, a Chinese sympathizer, and China itself buying up farmland in the United States to try and starve us because they're not sitting there planting it again. Over 200-something thousand acres. Okay, and that is a fact. And they're trying to buy land up in Dakota by one of our strategic bases. We just closed down a Chinese police station in New York. A Chinese police station on our soil. How many more are there? Now, Trump, before he left, he was getting rid of these guys left and right. Okay? And, of course, all the Democrats, they don't care. Why? Because all their investments are in China. Every single one of them. The Pelosi's especially. Okay? Now, you tell me what is wrong with this picture. Why can't the American public wise up? You know why we're having hearings? We're having hearings so that the people that don't get stuff from CNN and MSNBC and all those other stations, can find out for themselves. Okay? The hearings are just, and the Durham hearing is just exposing things where Durham found out that Trump was telling the truth the whole daggone time, that they were spying on him. Without any purpose at all. Just to prevent it. The DOJ has been weaponized so bad, thanks to Alicia, what's her name? Macaroni? Whatever, the assistant DOJ. She's the one that's been involved in everything from Enron forward, for God's sake. Her and Weissman. 2 most dangerous daggone political, legal people in the United States. And, of course, you see, that means that Merrick Garland can sit there and say, he didn't know about this, he didn't know about that. Oh, I don't know about that. And another thing, on this Hunter Biden thing, they sit there and the U.S. attorney says it's still an ongoing investigation. Well, Hunter Biden's lawyers and Joe Biden got on saying it's a resolved matter. They were hoping it was a resolved matter. That way you would never hear about the Hunter Biden laptop again. Implicating his father. Excuse me. Implicating his father. They want to keep this stuff out of the news. That's for sure. What little news is covering it. And some of these networks are having to force themselves to cover things because it was just so obvious and so out there. I mean, now we got a Chinese base in Cuba. A Chinese base in Cuba. What should we do? Should we sit there and have an American base in Taiwan just to get even with them? We should be asking our candidates what they would do about the Chinese base in Cuba. Isn't that against the Monroe Doctrine and the Teddy Roosevelt Doctrine? about interference from other countries in the Western Hemisphere. Anyway, I don't know what to tell you. Wise up, please, folks. Don't sit there and stare at CNN all day long. You're not going to hear nothing. You're not going to hear the truth. These people don't respect you. That's why they lie to you left and right. There has never been more corrupt administration in the United States history. They're all in on it. And they're all covering their butts. They all don't want Donald Trump in there. Why? Because he knows Donald Trump going to go in there and clean house. Because he's not going to care. It'll be his second administration. Lame duck presidency. He's not going to care. He's going to go in there and clean house. You betcha. We ought to be asking DeSantis and the rest of these people what they're going to do about the situation. Okay? The Chinese are mobilizing their civilian population for war. They're preparing for war. And we ain't doing nothing. And we don't have a military-industrial complex any longer. So we cannot produce the stuff like we did in World War II and Korea and Vietnam. Okay? In fact, we're giving it all away to Ukraine. Probably because of that bribe. Who knows? Anyway, I'm getting riled up. I'm sorry. No, I'm not sorry. This is absolutely the worst administration we've had in our entire history. They're just a bunch of liars, and they're a bunch of cheats. And they're sitting there scrambling, trying to figure out what to do. Now, they're going to throw Joe Biden under the bus, trust me. But you see, by the Justice Department saying it's still under investigation, they don't have to get documents to Congress. They can say, oh, it's still under investigation. You resolved it. You gave the guy his plea deal. What's your problem? It's just like that unclassified whistleblower document. Why do you have to redact an unclassified document? Okay? If it was so sensitive, why didn't you classify it? Anyway, I'm going to let you go. God bless you all. And remember, I remain your humble but outraged servant. Take care.